me, Geeta, Chanda, sorry, Chanda and Sehrish. Okay. So again, let us not to waste the time. New welcome after short break with your team, your platform, new energy, and let us start with our polyhydramnios. Okay, Chanda and Sehrish. Chanda and Sehrish. Okay. So key points, what is given there in that talk article, same I have copied here. It is a common obstetric condition, but its management can often become challenging. Mild polyhydramnios resolves frequently and is not usually associated with adverse perinatal outcome. There is a higher prevalence of aneuploidy, which is 10 to 20% in severe polyhydramnios. Unexplained polyhydramnios has been associated with increased rate of perinatal morbidity and mortality. Now, let us see what we are dealing with. So, who will tell me what is polyhydramnios?
When the amniotic fluid is more than 20 centimeter.
25 centimeter.
Polyhydramnios is defined as excessive accumulation of amniotic fluid. What you said, that is correct also. That also we will see in detail. When it is excessive accumulation of amniotic fluid, and more specific definition is what it will come now. Incidence of polyhydramnios is 0.2 to 3.9%. So it will come 0.2 to 4. है ना? Overall, just to say 0.2 to 4%. Unexplained polyhydramnios is 50 to 60%. Okay, 50 to 60% will be unexplained. So we will find in what is the percentage where we will find some explanation for this polyhydramnios?
RS isomerization.
Yeah, but what is the percentage? What is the percentage we will find there is some
10 to 20% cases.
10 to 20% cases. We have 50 to 60% unexplained. So the remaining of it will be, there will be some explanation. है ना? 40 to 50%. Yes. Then when it is unexplained, polyhydramnios, there will be 2 to 5-fold increase in perinatal mortality when it is unexplained. Okay, we don't know what is the cause of polyhydramnios. It is there. So in that case, there will be 2 to 5-fold. And when we identify the cause, it will be that cause specific then. Okay, so overall incidence of polyhydramnios 0.2 to 3.9%, unexplained 50 to 60%, and 2 to 5-fold increase in perinatal mortality when it is unexplained. Okay, dear? And the very specific definition when amniotic fluid volume is above the 95th centile. That is polyhydramnios, because each gestation there will be different amount of amniotic fluid according to the gestational age. That also we will see. So the more specific definition is amniotic fluid volume above 95th centile. It is an excessive accumulation of fluid. Incidence is 0.2 to 4. Unexplained is 50 to 60%. When it is unexplained, mortality is perinatal mortality is 2 to 5-fold. Clear up to here?
Yes.
Okay, dear.
Yes,
now it is associated with higher fetal loss rate up to 4%. Many percentages are there. So I have put all the percentages in 1 to 2 slide only. Okay. Then it increases to 60%. See, fetal loss with polyhydramnios is up to 4%. But if there is already any coexistent structural anomalies are there, it will increase to 60%. Very high. Already when there is coexistent anomalies. Then There is higher prevalence of aneuploidy, we said that, which is 10 to 20% in severe polyhydramnios. Okay, fetal loss rate 4%. When there is the structural coexistent anomalies, it is 60%. Aneuploidies in severe polyhydramnios will be 10 to 20%. So these all are percentages only. What is the physiology of this of this liquor? What is the physiology?
Two portion. It has two source. One is maternal and one is fetal. Fetal source is fetal urine, and maternal source is from the placental side and amniotic membrane secretion.
Very good. Yes. Very good. Now, in a normal singleton pregnancy, amniotic fluid volume, it increases progressively until when?
33
Until
weeks.
33 weeks. After that, what happens? Initially, it is increasing progressively until 33 weeks. After that, it will plateau. Plateau until when?
37.
36.
Up to 38 weeks. After that, what happens?
Decreases.
Yes, it will decreases between 38 and 42 weeks. Okay, so initially it will increase progressively until 33 weeks. Then it will plateau between 33 and 38, and 38 to 42, it will start declining. Volume between 22 and 39 weeks of gestation ranges from 630 to 817 ml. It was given there in our talk. Okay, so clear so far here, nothing much to understand here. Only normal physiology is what? It will increase progressively up to 33 weeks. Then it will plateau between 33 and 38. And between 38 and 42, it will decline. Please try to memorize these figures. In my exam, there was question on beta quantitative in pregnancy, and there was graph was given. The graph was progressively increasing, the graph which was decreasing, and the graph which will plateau between from the gestational age up to 20 weeks. So for this also, no wonder if some graph will come about increasing, about plateau, and about declining. So just keep in mind those figures. Huh? Okay, my dear?
Dr. Famida?
Yes, my
Hello?
dear.
Sorry, please, what is below that, what is written down? We couldn't see it. Volume something. There's something written below the 38 to 42 weeks.
This is amniotic fluid volume range between 22 and 39 weeks, which ranges from 630 ml to 870 ml, 817 ml. What we see, amniotic fluid index, we see as an index, AFI. Here they have given between 22 weeks up to 39 weeks, this will be the total volume of amniotic fluid. It can range from 630 ml to 817 ml. This is average.
Okay. So 630 to 87. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome, my dear. Now, the amniotic fluid volume presented at any one time. So it's balance. How the balance, what you said earlier, the balance of amniotic fluid, how it will be maintained. How? It will be between the production and removal. Amniotic fluid volume will be production and removal. That's how the total balance will be maintained. So what are the factors which will affect this production, removal? What are the factors which will affect? As someone said that it is fluid production will be from fetal urine production, secretion from respiratory tract, and oral secretions. Then removal will be from swallowing. That we know already. So baby will swallow it, take it out. Swallow it, take it out, like that. Then across the membranes, transfer across the placental umbilical cord, fetal skin, and across the fetal membranes, transmembranous flow. All this will make interconnection to keep the balance together. Abnormality in one of the above mechanism leads to excessive accumulation of fluid. Either the production is more, either the removal is less. Any of this will affect the amount of fluid. Okay, am I clear here so far?
Yes.
Okay. Now, ultrasound evaluation, we will not go into much detail of this, but still we will see. Ultrasound evaluation of amount of amniotic fluid can be achieved by subjective assessment or a semi-quantitative estimation. This involves the measurement of either the deepest vertical pocket or amniotic fluid index or 2-diameter pocket or 3-dimensional measurement. Sorry, this 6 is just the number, nothing related to with that line. So these all are the things, the criteria how we measure. The first one is deepest vertical pocket, amniotic fluid index, 2-diameter pocket, and 3-dimensional measurements. Now let us see the details of it. Amniotic fluid index is calculated by obtaining a sum of vertical dimensions of 4 imaginary cord and limb free quadrants. We divide the uterus into 4 quadrants, isn't it? Above and below of umbilicus and right and left side of the umbilicus. Like that we make 4 quadrants. And then we see in that quadrant there should be no limbs and no cord. And there we measure amniotic fluid. That is one criteria. Then deepest vertical pool measurement is of the largest visible cord and limb free pocket of amniotic fluid. When we see the figure, it will be more easy to understand because more easy to grasp there. Here it is given 1, 2, 3, and 4 quadrants. Okay. So either we measure the 4 quadrants. So what was our definition of amniotic fluid polyhydramnios? One was excessive amount of amniotic fluid. Second was more than 95th centile. Now we are coming to number. Although gestational age specific thresholds can be applied to define polyhydramnios, generally speaking, a constant value of AFI more than or equal to 25 centimeter or the deepest vertical pocket more than or equal to 8 centimeter can be used across all the gestational ages. Okay, so if we see centile, it is more than 95th centile. If we see simple definition that is excessive amount of collection of amniotic fluid. If we see number, so total AFI more than or equal to 25 and deepest vertical pocket will be more than or equal to 8. That is throughout all the gestational ages will be defined as a polyhydramnios. Is it clear here? Is it clear or any doubt here, my dear?
Clear,
Anyone
but,
can?
Ma'am, previous slide I have missed because of internet connection.
No problem. You want to see this? See.
Before this. Yes.
Okay.
This one.
Okay. Done. So this is objective assessment.
Okay.
Here is the AFI, what we are measuring in 4 quadrant. Here 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is more than or equal to 25. And this is the single deepest vertical pocket, DVP, single deepest vertical pocket, when we are seeing more than 8 centimeter.
That's equal to
Or more than 8 centimeter. That will be our definition of polyhydramnios. So clear here so far? Dear, it is too late. I'm very sorry for that. Next time I will try to revise the timing other than Sunday. What other day it will be suitable that where you all people will be able to attend and will be fresh to get it, because talking me, Mafi, if it is of no use unless it reaches to you people. Okay, so I'm sorry for that. Now,
Ma'am, it will be good if you take divided 2 sessions, that is the early part of Sunday in early not late. And
My dear,
Tuesday
I
as
will,
well.
to be very clear with you guys, I will tell you every Saturday is my on call. So Sunday I'm post on call and I'll go for duty from 12 o'clock until 6. Sometimes it becomes 7. That is here in Saudi Arabia. So on call, how your on call goes, on call usually is very hectic, and also that time morning, it becomes very difficult. All the days, Tuesday, I am on floor in OR, which is 7 to 3. That is only fixed. That's why Tuesday evening I take. Another option with me is Friday morning, if it is okay for you people. Later
No,
on,
ma'am,
you all,
Friday, not possible. We have
afternoon,
duties.
afternoon.
Yeah, afternoon is possible.
Okay, then we will try to finalize sometime Friday afternoon, which is suitable for everyone. Because it should reach to you people when you people are sitting and attending. Otherwise, what is the use of me sitting and talking? Okay, dear. So we will see. Sunday, when it is not feasible for all of you, I will cancel it. Don't worry.
Thank you.
God bless you. For me, this is my, because of my duties, no, this is the issue, dear. Daily the duty is there till 8. That's why I cannot choose any day in other than this Tuesday, where is the straight theater, and Sunday post on call when I come comparatively early at home, like that. So this is our definitions we have seen. Now classification, because we found what is polyhedron. Now we have to classify based on condition, how it is mild, which is 25 to 29.9, moderate 30 to 34.9, and severe, which is more than 35. Just remember what we say in obesity, but in obesity it is 40 and above is morbid, no? Just like that, this is 25 to 25.9, 30 to 34.9, and more than 35, mild, moderate, and severe. Okay, I will not ask much questions to you guys today because I know everyone is sleepy. But you people, when you people want to ask after hearing the lecture again, questions, any doubts, you post in the group, then no problem. Okay, now etiology. We will go now to etiological factors. So etiology, maternal factors and fetal factors. So what can be the maternal factors? Simple. Even in
Poorly
sleep,
controlled diabetes,
very good. In sleep also we can answer
RH
this.
incompatibilities,
Very good. Maternal drug exposure to lithium, which can lead to fetal diabetes insipidus. That also can cause it. Okay, little bit interaction, still it will keep you guys awake, huh? So let us continue interaction. Now what about fetal? What about fetal?
Esophageal ectasia
Excellent.
and
You see how to make it little easy. Whatever fetal structural abnormalities, congenital malformations, which will make difficult to swallow, isn't it? It will make. So we will see what are those conditions. So structural or congenital malformations, then whatever chromosomal, your infections, and any fetal associated tumors, whatever the tumors associated with nerve roots and all, neuroblastoma and all, and any macrosomia. Macrosomia, there will be disturbance in sugar, polyuria, in that way, macrosomia. Okay, so we will see now one by one what those are there. Then placental also, placental tumors such as cholangiomas and metastatic neuroblastoma. And another one is, fourth one is unexplained. Maternal causes, fetal causes, placental, and unexplained. In placental, there is cholangiomas and metastatic neuroblastoma. And cholangiomas is 30%. Cholangiomas, it is 30% associated with polyhydramnios. Is it okay, you people? I will continue.
Dr. Pramita, please show the previous slide, the slide before the last one. Before this. Okay, thank you.
Okay, my dear. Is it okay? I will continue, or shall I postpone this lecture to the other with the other things, my dear? Is it okay?
Dr. Famida, continue.
yes,
Continue. Sure, huh? Okay, dear. So we said maternal factors, we said fetal factors, we said placental factors, and there is unexplained. In placental chorangiomas is 30% associated with polyhydramnios. That's why I have highlighted that. Now, this fetal structural anomalies, what is there, I have taken as it is as a chart. So go system by system from a central nervous system, anencephaly, spina bifida, encephalocele, hydrocephalus, microcephaly, and Dandy Walker malformation. This is for central nervous system. Then we come, there was for head and neck also something, goiter, cystic hygroma, cleft palate. Then respiratory system, as we said, tracheal agenesis, congenital diaphragmatic hernia, congenital cystic adenomatoid malformation, and bronchopulmonary sequestration. Then, as we said earlier, esophageal atresia, tracheoesophageal fistula, duodenal intestinal atresia, exomphalus, and gastroschiasis. One by one. Respiration. Now we are going down GI. Now we will go to genitourinary. Pelvic-ureteric junction obstruction. Obstruction means it is not getting more outside. Bartter syndrome. Then skeletal system. There will be lethal skeletal dysplasia, cardiac anomalies, sacrococcygeal teratoma, immune and non-immune hydrops fetalis, fetal akinesia, dyskinesia syndrome. All these are just a general this thing has to be there in brain. Now unexplained. Let us see about unexplained. What we said, 50 to 60% cases are unexplained, and when it is unexplained, there is 2 to 5-fold increase in perinatal morbidity and mortality. So in absence of maternal, fetal, and placental etiology, it is thought to be unexplained or idiopathic polyhydramnios. So the category accounts for 50 to 60% of the cases. It has been linked with significantly higher rate of what can happen when there is polyhydramnios. There will be macrosomia. There will be malpresentation, and it becomes a cause of primary cesarean section. Okay. This we said already 2 to 5-fold. Now every case of polyhydramnios requires a systematic search for an underlying cause, and unexplained polyhydramnios is a diagnosis of exclusion. We have to search all the causes, placental factor, maternal, fetal factor. When we could not find anything, then it became unexplained. It is a diagnosis of exclusion. What other conditions are there which are diagnosis of exclusion? Anybody remembering anything?
Yes.
Yes. What other condition? Diagnosis of exclusion?
Obstetric cholestasis.
Excellent. Beautiful. What else?
Idiopathic.
What other conditions other than this unexplained polyhydramnios, diagnosis of exclusion? What the meaning of diagnosis of exclusion means we exclude all the other condition, and then we confirm that yes, this is the thing. So that
Nausea, vomiting of pregnancy.
yes, nausea, vomiting of pregnancy. Yes, that's diagnosis of exclusion, hyperemesis gravidarum, like that. So we are coming now assessment and investigation. Rapidly increasing. Now assessment will start from our clinical assessment. So rapidly increasing symphysiofundal height. That is first thing. Customized growth chart. When it is, we are seeing the chart is crossing the centiles up. As we said in IUGR, when it is crossing down. So what will be up when the measurement will be above the 90th centile? Chart is going up and it is crossing the 90th centile of our symphysiofundal height. And we insisted that day also it is customized chart, not population-based chart. Customized growth chart, double became. So this is indicative of polyhydramnios. Rapidly increasing symphysiofundal height, and when we plot on customized growth chart, it will be measurements will be above the 90th centile, 90 centile on customized chart is indicative of polyhydramnios. Don't get confused with the two figures. Measurement on plot on customized growth chart will be above 90th centile, 90. But the definition of polyhydramnios when the volume of the liquor is above 95th centile. These two are different things. Don't mix with them. More often, polyhydramnios is incidentally diagnosed at routine ultrasound examination or when ultrasound is performed for another indication. Okay, now when we found already there is polyhydramnios, now we will do some investigation. What investigation we will do? We will do maternal investigation, we will do fetal investigation, and we will try to do some investigation to quantify the risk of preterm labor, because with this polyhydramnios women may land up with preterm labor. So these are our investigation based on these three factors. Let us see now one by one. Once polyhydramnios is confirmed, the next step is to search for an underlying etiology. What maternal factors we will see?
Blood group and blood sugar level.
Very good. Very good.
Infections.
Sugar? Yes, blood sugar, red cell antibodies, and infection, as we said. So what is the most common type of investigation which can lead to polyhydramnios? We have toxo, we have cytomegalovirus, we have parvovirus. Parvovirus because it will cause hydrops also, no? Just keep it that way. When there is hydrops, there is polyhydramnios. Okay. In the same time, what we will do, we will counsel regarding the risk to mother. About what risk? There can be risk of preterm labor, unstable lie, cord prolapse can happen, anti and postpartum hemorrhage, and increased operative interventions. So maternal investigation, maternal counseling regarding risk. Okay, when we did that, counseling and all, after that now, manage. The management, it is coming in the next further our slide, how we will manage further as per whatever the we will identify the etiology of maternal or fetal, or it is an unexplained. Accordingly, we will see further our management. Now about fetus. Mother, we said we will see sugar, we will see Rh antibodies, antibodies, we will screen for infection, which is toxo, cytomegalovirus, and which one, third one?
Red cell antibodies.
Parvovirus. Yes. Yes, very good. Now we are seeing for fetal. For baby, what we will do? The first thing, how we will know about the baby? The first thing to see about detailed ultrasound only. So ultrasound to see fetal abnormalities in weight, small, big, macrosomia, IUGR, stomach movements. They said that there is gestational age-wise different measurement of stomach is there. Accordingly, it should be seen, it seems. The details I don't know yet. And about baby's movements. Movements to be seen, why? Why movements to be seen? Because initially we said some skeletal abnormalities are also associated with polyhydramnios. So any structural abnormality, weight, because macrosomia will tell us, yes, some sugar disturbance, something is going on, stomach and movement. When we did all these things about ultrasound, now what we are suspecting to do this? We are suspecting either fetal congenital abnormalities, aneuploidies, infection, IUGR, and concerns regarding movements. This is all our idea what we are trying to identify. Okay?
Madam,
Okay.
this stomach thing, want to identify any congenital like this duodenal atresia kind of thing? Why we are looking to stomach specifically?
The stomach bubble, usually when you see the water, what is that? Maybe, yeah. In this case, polyhydramnios because of duodenal atresia, maybe, yes.
Okay, ma'am.
That regard to that only. Otherwise, when you are seeing, suppose if estimated fetal weight and all, that time the value of stomach is something different when you see, when it is seen filled, when it is seen small, when it is seen, it may change in the abdominal circumference, which may again interfere with the abdominal circumference and weight. So there is different, but here with duodenal atresia.
Okay.
Okay, dear. So we suspected any fetal anomaly, aneuploidy, infection, growth, and concern regarding movements. We did detailed ultrasound. Now what we are doing further? When we did this ultrasound, we came to any of this point, and there is polyhydramnios. We are urgently referring to fetal medicine specialist. Okay, Detailed scan we did. From detailed scan, we suspected this. There is anomaly. There is suspicious of aneuploidy. There is fetal infection, growth restriction, or there is concern regarding fetal movements. We refer to fetal medicine specialist. I have linked it together so there should not be confusion. Okay, dear? Okay, clear here so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, dear. Now, the likelihood of congenital anomaly increases with severe polyhydramnios. In spite of a normal sonographic evaluation. Okay, what we said initially, first sentence, likelihood of congenital anomaly will increase with severity of polyhydramnios. Now we are talking sonography, ultrasound told us there is normal, no anomalies. Still, with mild polyhydramnios, still 1% anomalies can be there. This we are talking about major anomalies. With ultrasound normal evaluation, normal. Still with 1% mild, 2% moderate, and 11% with severe polyhydramnios can be there. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, dear? Okay, good. Now, small stomach or non-visualization of the stomach despite 45 minutes of scanning is considered abnormal, and gestational age specific chart provide the upper and lower limit of stomach dimension that I said. Evaluation of long bone and thorax will determine the presence of skeletal dysplasia. Although rare congenital cardiac disease can also be one of the cause, and targeted fetal echo may be helpful. Some cardiac anomalies also will cause polyhydramnios, so targeted echo will be there. Then assessment. Someone is asking, Sidra is asking, do we have one more session tonight? Sidra is asking there in the chat. Someone can tell her, please. Munib, if you are still awake. This is punishment for Munib also to sit with us. Sorry, Munib. Now, someone can message her, please, if it is possible for you people. Then assessment of fetal movements, tone, and examination of joints can be the key to the diagnosis of neuromuscular abnormalities such as arthrogryposis multiplex congenita. Okay, these all are the things which will be our in congenital things. It will come cardiac, muscular movements. Thank you, Maria, my dear. Thank you. Okay, so shall we move to next slide now? The most important thing in this slide, with severity of polyhydramnios, likelihood of congenital anomaly will increase. Though ultrasound shows normal evaluation, still with severity of polyhydramnios, major anomalies can be 1% with mild, 2% with moderate, and 11% with severe polyhydramnios. Now, what investigation we said initially? Ultrasound we did, maternal we did said earlier, fetal we did ultrasound. We found whatever the characteristics we have written there, accordingly we referred to feto-maternal medicine center. Now, karyotyping should be considered while evaluating polyhydramnios on an individual case basis. It will be individualized assessment. Now, polyhydramnios and ultrasound anomalies present and no ultrasound diagnosed anomalies. What is further we are seeing here now? The percentage of chromosomal anomalies with ultrasound showing some anomalies and ultrasound not showing some anomalies. What is the percentage of this one? Okay, when there is polyhydramnios, we did ultrasound. Ultrasound, there will be two things. Either ultrasound will show there is no anomaly, ultrasound will show yes, there is anomalies. So when ultrasound will show there is no anomalies, still 1% possibility is there. Some chromosomal associated abnormalities can be there. When ultrasound will show there is some anomaly, in that case, there will be 10% possibility of chromosomal abnormalities. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, clear.
Okay, okay, my dear. Similarly, in persistent polyhydramnios, the prevalence of aneuploidy is increased to 10 to 20%. This is there in key points also, 10 to 20%. So please remember this point. Aneuploidy, 10 to 20% compared to polyhydramnios with spontaneous resolution. Where it will be persistent, aneuploidy can be 10 to 20%. Okay, now what we said earlier, how to deal with when we start with polyhydramnios, maternal thing, fetal thing, and the risk of preterm delivery also to be assessed. We assessed mother condition. Yes, dear.
Ma'am, please previous slide दिखा दीजिए.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, welcome, my dear. So the third thing, what we said, the risk of preterm delivery to be assessed. So for that, what we always we do, cervical length by transvaginal ultrasound. Anyone in a position to tell the measurements or no need till next time? Anyone, if anyone in a position to tell, they can tell about cervical
25
length.
mm.
25 mm.
25 mm.
Up to what gestational age?
4 weeks.
And from what gestational age is it 1.5?
From 30 weeks, it is 1.5.
Yeah, 1.5 and less. Above 1.5 will be indicative of that there is no risk of preterm delivery. So this we do by transvaginal ultrasound to further to plan the management of delivery. Suppose if it looks like high risk to preterm delivery, we will whatever we want to give steroid or whatever we want to give magnesium. That is the thing. Now, what we did, whatever we said now, the same here in graphical representation, again we will see in detail. Now here mild is 25 to 29.9 we said, and moderate we said 30 to 34.9. So in that here, this is what we see earlier now, where we found some anomalies, structural anomalies, IUGR, all these things we will refer to Feto-Maternal Medicine Center. Isn't it? We said that, no? Earlier slide.
Yes.
Okay, now this is unexplained. Unexplained. So in unexplained, what we will do? In unexplained, we are dealing with 3 categories. There is mild, moderate, and severe. So first, let us make severe little separate. First, we will see mild and moderate, which is 25 to 29.9 and 30 to 34.9. What we are supposed to do in unexplained polyhydramnios, mild and moderate, serial growth scans and transvaginal scan for cervical length. Okay, this is the first thing. Serial growth scan we are seeing for baby and for assessment of Leica, and transvaginal scan to assess the risk of preterm delivery. Now, what further is being told here? No benefit from induction of labor for isolated, unexplained polyhydramnios. No benefit. Only polyhydramnios. Nothing is there. No sugar risk, no macrosomia, nothing, no anomalies, nothing, no maternal risk factor. So in that case, there is no benefit from induction of labor. Induction of labor only for maternal and fetal indications. Okay, this is to monitor the pregnancy. We are talking here unexplained polyhydramnios, mild and moderate. We are doing serial growth scan. We are doing transvaginal scan for cervical length. We are not inducing the patient unless there is maternal and fetal condition indication. Now during labor, what we will do, we will monitor for progress of labor because there can be labor dystocia. We will watch for shoulder dystocia. As we said earlier, there can be what all the factors can be there, malpresentation, abruption, cord prolapse, all the things. So this we have to monitor progress of labor, shoulder dystocia because can be macrosomia, and postpartum hemorrhage. There is antepartum hemorrhage, there is postpartum hemorrhage. Now, we delivered that. Now once baby delivered, though it was unexplained, though we did not find any congenital anomaly, still thorough neonatal examination is must. Mandatory, and specifically in unexplained polyhydramnios, check patency of upper GI tract with nasogastric tube for baby. When we know the anomalies, we know what is there, but here we don't know. It is unexplained. So specifically to check for GI tract with nasogastric tube. This we talked about mild and moderate. Now we are talking about severe Polyhydramnios, which is more than 35, it is persistent or worsening, or any fetal abnormalities. If any of these things will be there, what we will do, we will refer to fetal medicine specialist. Okay. Now here, this is one thing, we will refer to fetal medicine specialist. Another thing, what to see, if maternal discomfort or respiratory compromise from polyhydramnios or risk of preterm labor. If any of these factors will be there, there will be therapeutic amniodrainage. Therapeutic amniodrainage, where it is severe, there is maternal discomfort, respiratory distress, risk of preterm labor, therapeutic amniodrainage. And we will refer to fetal medicine specialist. When it is persistent, severe, it is worsening, or any fetal abnormalities. Okay, so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my dear. Now, management. Well, now the condition wise we will see. We have seen polyhydramnios where there were factors. We assessed mother, we assessed baby, we assessed the risk of preterm labor. Now one by one condition we will see. Poorly controlled maternal diabetes mellitus. Okay. This is etiology. How to deal with separate one by one etiology. So the management will be MDT. Okay. In MDT, who will come? Feto-maternal medicine specialist, diabetologist, and dietitian. Referral to feto-maternal medicine specialist is advisable in cases of suspected fetal anomaly, small for gestational age fetus, concerns with fetal movements, and persistent or worsening polyhydramnios. Because what we said in persistent polyhydramnios, rather than resolving, we said aneuploidy also there will be 10 to 20%. That was our earlier slide. 10 to 20% aneuploidy where there is persistent polyhydramnios. So if that is the thing, if there is IUGR, there is concerns with fetal movements, there is anomaly, suspected anomaly. In all these cases, referral to feto-maternal medicine center where there is poorly controlled diabetes. Okay, and MDT involvement.
Is there any role of neonatologist?
Yeah.
To explain or discuss the prognosis before?
Exactly. There will be, definitely there will be role of neonatologist, because what kind of anomalies will be there? Either it is diaphragmatic hernia, atresia, obstruction, tracheal atresia, everything. The prognosis and the immediate management, what will be the outlook of baby also when baby will be born, that is also very, very important. Yes, it will be there. So now, management in pregnancy. We dealt with everything we did. How further we will manage now pregnancy? There is increased risk of preterm delivery. So we are evaluating cervical length, that we said. Why we are doing that? To assess if there is any need of steroid. This is the thing. Another thing, what will be the risk now in pregnancy? We said earlier it is there, unstable lie, delivery by operative intervention, cord prolapse, antepartum and postpartum hemorrhage. Same points are there. Now here the thing, what we said, therapeutic amniocentesis or amniodrainage, where we said that where there is maternal respiratory distress or there is high risk of preterm labor in that case. So this therapeutic amniocentesis or drainage is done for what? For what? To treat symptomatic polyhydramnios, to minimize respiratory embarrassment with significant cervical shortening, to minimize the possibility of preterm birth. Okay? Okay, clear here? Therapeutic amniocentesis or amniodrainage. They have given little bit about that, which we will see if quickly we can see. Now, clinical methods for amniodrainage include either a slower technique, which is using 3-way stopcock with a 50 ml syringe, or a more rapid method using a vacuum assisted drainage system. This is the either slower technique or rapid method system for amniodrainage. Normally, the procedure is discontinued when AFI returns to less than 25, because it will not be no more polyhydramnios then, because our definition of polyhydramnios is according to number wise more than or equal to 25 centimeter, isn't it? So once it returns to normal, procedure will be discontinued, or until we will give symptomatic relief to mother, because with her respiratory distress we are doing this. The overall risk of complications such as preterm labor, premature rupture of membrane, chorioamnionitis, and placental abruption. The overall risk is small, but still it is almost 1.5 centimeter. However, there is high likelihood of recurrence, thus requiring repeated procedure. Serial amniodrainage can be technically difficult, and the risk of aforementioned complications, whatever we said, all preterm labor and all, will increase with each procedure. Okay, so here amniodrainage technique is either slower technique or rapid technique. We are doing to relieve maternal distress and to minimize the chances of preterm delivery. Normally, once the fluid returns to less than 25 centimeter, we will discontinue. Possibility of complication, preterm labor, P-prom, chorioamnionitis, and abruption, because sudden decompression will happen. So abruption can happen, no? Though the likelihood of all these complications are less, but still up to 1.5%. Okay, dear? Okay, still if you guys are awake, I will continue.
Yes, ma'am, continue.
Okay, now we did that fluid drainage. That is our technical method. Now medication. What medication will help in absorption of this fluid, in reducing the fluid? Which medication will help?
Indomethacin.
Indomethacin. Yes. Yeah. Prostaglandin synthetase inhibitors, which is indomethacin, which is cyclogenase 1 and 2 inhibitor, and Sulindac, which is cyclooxygenase 2. Okay, these two things are there. Let us see now. These drugs reduce amniotic fluid volume by how? By decreasing fetal urinary output and by enhancing the resorption of lung fluid. This is the physiology of these things. Some fetal medicine units in UK use Sulindac as it is a selective cyclooxygenase 2 inhibitor and has a better adverse effect profile. It has a better adverse effect profile. Dose is 200 milligram every 12 hourly, has been shown to be most cost effective in unexplained polyhydramnios or polyhydramnios with distal GI obstruction, distal gastrointestinal obstruction, this Sulindac. However, these medications are associated with significant adverse fetal outcome, that we know that. Dose and gestational age dependent constriction of ductus arteriosus and impaired renal function. This can happen, we know. So in view of such significant adverse effects, these drugs are to be used only under strict specialist supervision, and their use in general obstetric practice is not recommended and is sometimes contraindicated. So this is not our decision. It will be definitely by a specialized consultant and fetal-maternal medicine consultant. Okay, dear, here clear? Nothing much about these two, their side effects, what is being used in UK, and what is the dose, 200 milligram, 12 hourly. This has better side effect profile, Sulindac.
Up to what gestational age should we continue?
They haven't explained it gestational age wise. They haven't specified it.
Okay.
We have to find it out, but they haven't specified it. I think till the polyhydramnios will come under control or till we deliver.
Okay.
But we will see still. Now, management in pregnancy. Once the cause is ascertained, it is good practice to follow up these patients with serial ultrasound and to monitor the Leica volume and fetal growth. This is the same chart. What is there? Same chart. Mild polyhydramnios resolves frequently without any intervention except for higher incidence of large for gestational age, macrosomia. Mild polyhydramnios by itself is not associated with increased risk of any adverse perinatal outcome. This is we are talking about mild. Now we are coming to management of labor. Initially, what we said, when it is mild, up to mild and moderate, as long as there is no maternal or fetal indication, there is no benefit of induction of labor. That's what we said, no, initially. Now we will see here. When polyhydramnios alone, so what we said, there is insufficient evidence induction of labor. Okay. The benefit do not seem to outweigh the risk. Okay. This is polyhydramnios alone and induction of labor. Insufficient evidence. Benefit is not outweighing the risk. Now, now this is the second scenario. Second scenario is what? Polyhydramnios is a part of what? With polyhydramnios, either there is uncontrolled maternal diabetes or any other maternal comorbidities or prolonged pregnancy. If anything is there, associated things are there, polyhydramnios and these things, induction of labor is indicated.
Maternal indication. Maternal
indication. Yes. Really, I like this. In all my presentation, I have my really maximum time I had given to present this, to prepare this presentation with all these charts and these arrows and all. And when I was preparing it, I was really very happy. But today, when most of you are not able to attend it, I'm feeling that I should have thought that point. Because I like all this type of arrows and all are coming. And when you see in one slide, in one look, you people should get the, what is that? What I want to say, rather than reading the whole things. Anyhow, inshallah, when you hear it later on again. Okay, so this was our before delivery, induction of labor question. Now we are coming in the part of labor. Once the labor is established, what we said earlier, there can be dysfunctional labor, prolapse, abruption, unstable lie, all these things. So close monitoring for signs of labor dystocia, controlled amniotomy in theater, and anticipation and preparation for complications such as shoulder dystocia and postpartum hemorrhage. Whatever we will anticipate, we should be ready for that. So here we have to take care and we have to do here safe obstetric practice. Safe obstetric, no need to do amniotomy just to rupture the membrane because we want to rupture and all. No, safe obstetric practice here.
Okay, when we do the amniotomy, Dr. Farnida?
Amniotomy now, you see, usually it is not recommended. It is not indicated. It is not indicated, isn't it? When there is any fetal concern or patient is in labor and there is labor is stuck. That guideline has been done. Nice guideline. Nice guideline of progress of labor is done. Slow progress and all that is done. Nice guideline. No, I'm asking. Yeah. I don't know.
Yes. It is
done. Okay. So according to guideline,
induction.
Huh?
Amniotomy in normal cases, we do, it is a surgical method of induction of labor.
Yeah, but another thing, when the patient, here we are talking about once labor is established. So there in our guideline, one nice guideline is there, no? Failure to progress of labor. Huh? So when we will suspect, there is slow progress, and when we will confirm, there is slow progress. Once we confirm slow progress, our next step, patient is in active labor. And when we confirm the progress is slow, first we suspect, then we confirm according to cervical findings in 2 hours, another 2 hours. Then what time do we do that time? We do amniotomy and syntocinon infusion if not adequate contraction. That is our management. So that suppose if we are supposed to do that, then it will be controlled and in theater. In theater, why? Suppose if cord prolapse, then
or abruptio
placenta, anything. So immediate recourse to surgical intervention will be there. Okay. Here we are not doing it for induction. Here we are doing once it is already established labor. In labor, if there is confirmed slow progress, that time to expedite the labor. Okay, dear?
Yes.
Okay, now what else? In case of unexplained polyhydramnias, that we said in the chart, it was there. Once the baby is born, a thorough neonatal examination with a minimum at least what to do to check the patency of our upper GI tract. Now it will need to check our patency also. To check patency of upper GI tract, using nasogastric tube is recommended. Just keep in mind, whatever things from chart, repeatedly I say, from boxes of this dog article, please memorize it. Because if the scenario comes that patient was with unexplained polyhydramnios, this delivered. If no other option matching with that, deliver, what you will do? If they did not mention that postpartum hemorrhage, means nothing to do with the mother. Something, if that option is there with the baby, that pediatrician to check the patency of upper GI using nasogastric tube, because that is recommended. However, there have been reports of babies being diagnosed with abnormalities when polyhydramnios was deemed to be unexplained in the antenatal period, that we said already. These include rare conditions such as West syndrome and polyuric syndrome. What is West syndrome? There is infantile spasm, hyperrhythmic electroencephalogram pattern, and mental retardation. Polyuric syndrome such as Bartter syndrome or other genetic syndromes. These are the things where normal reports were there with polyhydramnios. Most units in UK have practice of raising neonatal alerts in antenatal period in cases where there is polyhydramnios. Okay, already the point you said, any involvement of neonatologist. Okay, so that's why here is our neonatal alert. Oh, it looked like thank you came very fast. But how long it looked like to you people, that I cannot imagine. For me, it as if it came fast.
Previous slide to one. Came very fast. Okay.
For that much late night for you guys. And for me, it is as if I finished very fast this topic. Okay, my dearies. So, write whatever suitable time for you people, and I'm extremely sorry because of my schedule and all. As I told you, either a Friday morning, Friday afternoon, our Tuesday evening is already fixed, date is there, but whatever, when we will divide the sessions, what suitable time for you people, you see, Friday afternoon after 3 o'clock I'm free. That will be 5 o'clock in Pakistan and 5:30 in India. So let us think between 5 to 6 p.m. India and Pakistan. Whatever time suits you guys, you people write there in our chat, and I will see it next time to do that time. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, my dear. Anything else before we close the session? Whatever you people remember later on when you hear the lecture, whatever doubt comes and all, you write in the group.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, my dear. Now our next session, that will be Tuesday, which will start at, supposed to be 9 p.m. Pakistani time. I will try my best if I can start earlier. Okay?
Okay.
Tomorrow I will write in the group. Topic also I will write, and timing also I will write, inshallah. Okay then?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for your
Thank
great
you.
effort.
God bless. God bless, my dear. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Because
very
of
much, madam.
my this timing thing, my dear, really, I wanted to sit 24 hours and talk to you people and present every topic and whatever it can be benefited to you. But only because of this time restrictions and all, because duties also are there, which I cannot say anything for that. Huh? Thank you so much, and see you in next session. Huh?
Okay. Good night.
Okay.
Bye, bye.
Good night. Good night. And Allah Hafiz. Bye bye.